4, 3, 2, 1.
Now, customers are the backbone of any and all businesses. If we want to get more customers, we've got to seduce you all.
You've got to progress. If you want to attract bigger people in your life, then you've got to become a bigger person. You've got to become better at your skill sets. You've got to immerse yourself into personal development. You've got to find a mentor. You've got to find one or two people that have the results that you want.
Here we grow again. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Untold Upline Secrets / The Interviews. Today, I've got a good friend of mine on this particular Zoom, someone that I've actually worked with before, someone that I've been side by side with in numerous different countries actually around the world at the same time. I actually met this gentleman back probably about 12, 13 years ago in a company that rhymes with Cialis. And he was actually sidelined to me, and someone that, you know, we developed a bond over the years. And probably about 7 or 8 years after that, we started working together and been able to travel the world in different countries and attend basketball games when we don't even know what anybody is saying because we're in the country of France. I've been able to sit down with this gentleman and watch him get his hair cut in a country that has no idea what the word fade means. I had to throw that in there. It was absolutely hilarious. He's got some pictures of me too, so I know he's gonna throw some daggers at the same time. But I watched this gentleman excel in the marketing world, excel in the network marketing world, become a multiple six-figure earner, has a phenomenal family, lives in a beautiful state of North Carolina, and someone that I can call a true friend. So let's bring to the stage my man, Mr. James Penn Jr. James Penn, what's up, my brother?
Man, happiness is up, but listen, you gonna start it off like that. You went to the fade out of the country right off the. Well, I was backstage before I could even get up. I see what we doing. So
right off the bat. See this, but people need to understand something, James. Like if they don't get their hair cut the right way before they leave America and they go somewhere like France, they got to understand that the electrical sockets are not the same. I did some people a favor, man. They thought they could take their clippers with them, and it's like, hold on, these electrical sockets ain't the same over here, so it's a little different. Just
fair enough. Since you were teaching the people, I let it ride.
There you go. So we giving them teachers at the same time. Well, bro, first of all, glad to have you here, man. It's always good to see you, my brother. There's some people that are going to be seeing this that don't have the same privilege that I've had over the years of spending time with you and watch you excel and watch you grow to the family man, to the businessman, to the multiple six-figure earner that you become. So we want to start this thing off by just asking you, who's James Penn?
Oh man, James Penn Jr. Listen, I'm going to be able to, I think, relate to, a certain segment of people here that, are matriculating their way through the network marketing ranks or any other business that they may be involved in that aren't the superstars, right? Like a Cedrick Harris who comes in and knocks the leather off the ball when he first gets started. I grew up here in North Carolina, as you mentioned, and I don't know if they have this where you are in Florida, Ced, or where any of the other people who are watching where they live, but here in North Carolina, they got this thing they call the struggle. Do they got that in Florida? Is that?
They got that in Florida, VA, all over the world. Absolutely.
I got you. So I grew up in what they call the struggle. You know what I mean? I grew up no stranger to government assistance. I grew up on food stamps. And I'm talking them old school food stamps of like Monopoly money, right? The different colors.
No.
Yeah, you couldn't just go like nowadays they got the EBT. You got the little card, you could swipe it real quick. Don't nobody no. You had to pull out the whole pamphlet, right? We were no stranger to getting our utilities cut off, but it's interesting. However you grew up as a child, you think that's normal, right? Like I didn't know I was broke till I went to college, and I started meeting people like, you've never had a utility cut, like not even a phone. And that wasn't always the most embarrassing one, because if your water was cut off or your heat or gas or something, nobody knew. But when your phone was cut off, your friends called, they're like, your phone off, right? So I grew up, in that type of environment. But it's amazing because, again, however you grew up, you think that's normal. That's your normal. So I still thought that life was going to be amazing, right? When you're a kid, it don't matter if you're broke, if you're middle class, if you're doing well. You think when I grew up, right, little kids, hey, what are you going to be? I'm going to be the president. I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be a lawyer. You know, if you ask me what I was going to be, I was going to play in the NFL, right? Don't laugh. Said knows my stature. Y'all can't tell, but this is like I'm 4'5".
Bro, you was gonna be Emmitt Smith, bro. Like
Emmitt Smith. There we go. I take it. I'll take it. But you know, I thought I was going to do something. I still thought life was going to be amazing, even though I grew up in poverty, right, by some many standards. So fast forward, you know, go to college, do everything they tell you to do, right? Go to school, get a good education, get a good job, and I found myself still having this romanticized idea of the real world. Right. Even as young adults, you're like, OK, well, maybe I'm not going to be rich and famous, but, you know, I have a great job. I'll be able to, you know, do what I want to do, drive what I want to drive. You know, I have plenty of time to take off. And then the real world slaps you in the mouth when I graduate and I go work in a call center. And I didn't need a college degree to work in that call center. So the 19-year-old girl who's sitting next to me, who came there straight out of high school, is making more money than me with a college degree. And I had student loan debt. Right. I was broke. My wife was broke because she was married to me. I owed everybody in the world money except for, you know, the viewers because I hadn't met them yet. And, you know, life was really struggling. So that's when I got introduced to this network marketing profession. You know, I was, I guess, climbing the ladder of corporate America, as they like to say. And when I realized that it was leaning against the wrong building, I didn't climb down. I jumped off. And I saw something in network marketing. And I did not have a greater success out of the gates. My first 2 years in the business, I think my biggest month after 2 years was $300, and said, check this, I spent $700 the month I made $300.
Wow.
Right. So I was making negative money, but I was fired up. Once I made that $300, like you couldn't tell me I wasn't going diamond in that program. Right. Won't say the name of the company, sounds like Ramway, but you know, got involved in personal development, paid the price and things of that nature. But even though I didn't make money there, I do believe a lot of the money I made in my career afterwards was attributed to the growth and process and the time that I had there. So phenomenal experience in terms of personal growth and development. Fast forward, took a hiatus, you know, got involved and then started to have a little bit of success, you know, making, you know, $2,000-$3,000 a month, which for some people, they might think that's not a big deal. And I know there's others that were just dreaming to make $3,000 a month. But when you came from $300 a month after 2 years to making $3,000 a month, and then that company was paying for your, you know, BMW at the same time, after 3 months, you know, I was like, you know what, if I really give this thing a go, I might could really make a career of it. And that's when I met you, sideline, started to get around some mentors. And, you know, fast forward, I was able to make, you know, six figures, multiple six figures, as you said, retire myself, my wife from corporate America while I was in my 20s, and help literally hundreds of thousands of people around the world get started in this profession. Some of them have made, you know, significant supplementary income, part-time income, full-time. I've lost track of how many six-figure earners have come through my organization, and even a few seven-figure earners. So extremely, you know, humbled, you know, to remember, I'm not saying this because I'm trying to impress you. I'm not saying guy that grew up on government assistance and only made $300 after 2 years. So that's, you know, long story shorter. I won't say short, but shorter. That's my story. That's who I am.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, you're real humble with it, man. We're gonna take this down the rabbit hole a little bit later because, you know, you've had some really good people come through your organization, and you sponsored some monsters. But we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But let's take it back a little bit more, though. What year did you actually get started in? And what was that thing? You know, I've asked everybody, how were you introduced? You know, were you dragged to a meeting? Were you coerced over the telephone? Did somebody throw you in the trunk of the car and then you popped up and you were at the hotel? Like, what year was it and how were you introduced to this game?
So it was 2005. I had just graduated from college, Appalachian State University, and one of my former classmates, you know, gave me a call out of the blue. So it was a telephone call. Now you got to go back to 2005. You got to think this is a time where Facebook was brand new. You had to have a .edu email address. It was only college students. YouTube didn't exist. Facebook didn't exist. Right. So I got a phone call, you know, from a classmate of mine who I found out later he had got cold contacted at a KFC, and the gentleman actually sat down and did a napkin presentation, a literal napkin presentation at the KFC. And he went out, my classmate, I went out to a meeting. He came back, put my name down on the list. And when he put my name on the list, you know, they followed up, they called me, and he was telling me, hey man, I met this guy, he's got this business thing, you know, you should check it out. And I was like, okay, well, tell me about it. He was like, well, I'm gonna have him call you. I was like, no, don't have him call me. Like, you tell me about it. And he was like, well, I already gave him your number. Like, I'm like, dude, you gave him. I'll tell him not to call you. I was like, well, if you already gave him, don't call him back now. And after the fact, tell him not to call me. Right. I'll talk to him. Right. So I talked to him, you know, and again, this time the technology wasn't the same as now, but they did a web presentation because he was in Charlotte. I was up in the mountains in Boone, North Carolina, about to transition from Appalachian State. And he did a web presentation, which that was kind of something back in 2005 to be able to get on the web down in Charlotte and do a presentation. It was one thing that stood out on that presentation. He showed me the Social Security Administration numbers at 65 years old and how, you know, only 2% of people were financially stable at 65. Not wealthy, but, you know, you had a certain percentage that obviously just didn't make it to 65 because they died. Number one cause of death is stroke, you know, and number one cause of stroke is stress, right? You know, heart disease is stress. So some people don't make it to 65. Other people are still working at 65. Some people are, you know, relying on the government or friends and family. And only 2% are taking care of themselves. That was the only thing that stuck out with me on the presentation. I was like, yo, that's great. Like, that's not going to be me. I'm graduating from college. Let me go out to their meeting that they're talking about. And I drove down to Greensboro, North Carolina, went to a meeting, and they postured me real good. Said they did the red light, yellow light, green light closed, but they did this. They said, out of room this size, and it was maybe 100 people in the room. They said, out of room this size, you know, we only need about, you know, 2, maybe 3 people. So I don't realize that all of the people in this room, most of them are the reps. I'm thinking everybody's guests. I'm like, oh man, they're only going to take 2 or 3. So I ran out as soon as the meeting was over. I ran out and called the guy back. Was like, look, I'm a green light. I'm a green light. Like, please pick, like, maybe be one of the 2 or 3. You know, because I saw in that meeting that if you could get 6 people, right, to go platinum in that organization, 6 good teams, you can make $250,000. And I was like, oh, you needed 6 people? Man, I'll have 6 people by next week. This is, and 250, again, I came from like being broke. I thought $250,000 was rich. I'm like, man, I have a yacht. I'm gonna have a mansion, 250,000. Right. So I was all in, and that's how I got started in network marketing. Interesting enough, I'll wrap it with this. My classmate had called me, had come out to a couple meetings during that time period, and he backed out and he never got started in network marketing. Yet, you know, had he done that, he'd have been my sponsor, and who knows, you know, what kind of overrides he would have got over the life of his network marketing career. But, you know, he said, man, I don't know. These people kind of weird, you know, whatever. And I said, well, I want to do it. So I got started, and, you know, here we are.
It's kind of crazy how sometimes the people that can introduce us to something, then they don't do it. Because I got a similar story, man. Like, the person who introduced me, he just brought it to my office, was like, said, this ain't for me, but I told the guy, you probably do something like this. And I'm like, I don't know how much that would have cost you, bro. I couldn't even calculate that. You know what I mean? But good luck. You know, I haven't talked to him in probably 15 years, man. I talked to my original sponsor in Excel Communication back from 1999. I talked to him probably about 7-8 years ago. And it was a very interesting conversation. Say it, how you doing? I see things are working out for you. I mean, them pyramids work, bro. I appreciate that conversation in your living room. So that's amazing. But let's dive down a little bit even deeper, you know, because of this particular company, you know, there's a good chance that 99.9% of people that are looking at this training right now are not inside that company. There's a good chance. So let's talk a little bit about that company. You know, for those of y'all that don't know, that company is Amway. And the reason I want to bring it up is that it's so interesting to me how people go on through life, and one of the biggest objections that they've gotten is this thing like Amway. And I'm like, you guys are weird. Like, how many companies do you know that own stadiums? I live in Tampa. They own the Amway Arena in Orlando. Like, how many companies do you know that do a couple of $1 billion a year, you know, that are still in existence? How many companies do you know that actually fought for our industry that help make things legal? So talk to us about some of the things that you learned coming up through Amway that you were able to apply to your life today and throughout your direct selling career?
Said you're so on point, man. That's why even as I tell the story, I say, hey, listen, I didn't make my money there, but I do know indirectly the money I've made is attributed to my time there, because said, man, I don't want to step on no toes or offend nobody, right? But this is said. I know how we get down. We got to keep it a buck, right? I've seen a lot of great, companies and training programs, things of that nature. I have never seen personal development on the level of what I've seen inside of Amway. And I want to make the distinction that there's a difference in professional skill set and personal development. I've been involved in companies and opportunities where they have a dialed in system of, the company where we met, where, hey, you're going to do your party, your party system. They have it dialed in. I've seen companies where they have their PS3. You're going to peak shared three-way, and they're teaching you how to three-way, and they're teaching you the edification triangle, and they're teaching you all these things. That is not personal development. That is a professional skill set of how to speak, how to, invite, how to do. And those things are great. And there's a place for that. Don't hear me wrong. But that is not personal development. The training I got on who you are growing as a person is second to none inside of that opportunity. And that's why if you see people who have been there for a while, you will not rip them out, even if they're not making money at the time. Because what price tag do you put on? I used to be an alcoholic, and I got involved in this program. And even though I'm not making the money after these years, like, I've cleaned my life up. This thing saved my marriage. I'm a different person. I was literally a drug addict, and somebody poured into me. I've never seen the level of servitude and driving miles and giving yourself away to other people, and that was just exuded in us. That was inculcated into the culture that you are there to the only way you could pay your upline back, because they wouldn't take money from you, right, is to go out and build a big business. And to go out and build a big business, you have to go serve other people. So it was a high level game of tag you're it, right? And so the personal development, man, obviously I could go into like the specifics of just character development, the specifics of, understanding the law of averages, the law of the lid, just, all of the different, specifics of personal development, leadership, all of those different things. But just to, sum it up, man, that is the biggest thing that I see there. That's just, I'm second to none.
How many people have you seen that got recruited from Amway? You said it. I haven't seen any. You can show somebody a check that you just made $1 million last month, and they've been in that company for 18 years, and they could have made $365 last month, and they'll look at you and be like, "That's great. One day I'll get it." You hit the nail on the head. Culture, indoctrinating people inside of that culture, indoctrinating them inside of personal development, which leads me to the next question. One of the things that they were really good at is culture, and we've been a part of things, together, as well as sideline and different opportunities that we've seen good culture and we've seen horrible culture. What would you say from a culture standpoint, good and bad, that you have learned and something that you pay close attention to these days at the same time?
Yeah, culture is definitely one of the things I pay attention to. So, it's so interesting when people are sharing your opportunity with you. Typically, a lot of times they want to get straight to the product or straight to the compliment. Man, you got to see this compliment. Man, this product is the most amazing thing. And those things are important. But on my criteria, when I'm evaluating an opportunity, I'm going to look at the culture before that, because I had a really, really smart, super sharp, sponsor and coach one time. And he said, "Hey, listen, I don't care what your favorite airline is. If the pilot is drunk, you're dead." Right. That was said, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, right? He said, "Listen, I don't care if you like American, Delta, Virgin, Atlantic, right? They treat you like royalty. The ambiance is cool. If the pilot's drunk, you're dead." And now, why am I mentioning this in culture? Because the leader of the organization or the company or both, right? The leadership is going to set the culture. right? So like evaluating who is the pilot of the plane, who is, you know, the captain of the ship is very, very important, because when you look at their character, you know, some of the coaches that we've been around where we're like, yo, this ended up kind of being toxic. We could go back and look at the leadership and see what were their actual, not professional skill sets, but their personal development values. See how this is connecting here? Because they clearly had a tremendous professional skill set, you know, how to be smooth with people. Stephen Covey talks about, you know, there's a difference in the personality ethic and the character ethic, right? Your personality is how to appear to be. Your character is how to actually be, right? So you can get real smooth in your communication and how to speak with people, right? But who you are when nobody's looking, right? And your core is who you really are. And so we have to reduce our contradictions and make sure that our interview lines up with our interview, right? What we say has to line up with what we do, right? The tongue in our mouth has to line up with the tongue in our shoe. And so when I evaluating the culture, I'm going to start by evaluating the leadership, the individual, whether that's the company owner, whether that's the, you know, the leadership in the field, right? Because if you're joining an organization and there's not an opportunity for you to earn your way to leadership at the top, right, a seat at the table, because it's so cemented, right? If you don't find yourself at a seat at the table, you will find yourself on the menu. And so if you can't come in and let part of your character and your integrity and your personality have a thumbprint on the culture, then, you know, I tend to steer away from that, because culture is that important.
Bars. Did you just say you got to line your tongue up, your tongue in your mouth with your tongue in your shoe? Bars. Bars.
Talking.
Bars. Ooh, this is going to be a good one. I had Bass Grant on here a couple of days ago, Mr. 150. And I said, man, you are the king of the one-liners. He had zinger after zinger after zinger. And that interview just went so good. And we're going down the same road. So this is good. I love this. I love this. But let's hang on this for a second. Let's hang on this for a second, because let's take it a step further. You know, we're not going to talk about a specific company name, but we're going to talk about a specific company, only because it's not in business anymore. And I think that when we talk about leadership and we talk about culture, it's so key. You know, we were in an opportunity that we watched something go from nothing to $60+ million a month. We watched something go from not being talked about to being copied all throughout the industry. We watched people that couldn't close a door that were now making $130,000, $140,000, $150,000 a month. And then we watched leadership change it all up. And most people don't understand how important that is. I remember the day clearly when I resigned from that opportunity. And there were so many people told me I was crazy, because I was still making really, really good money. I mean, I walked away from 40 grand a month at that time, you know, and I was a top recruiter in the company, and I resigned. And people said, man, you nuts. But then a year later, I looked like a genie in a bottle. How did you know that? How did you see it? And I'm like, everything rises and falls on leadership. You know, I don't believe that you can sleep where you eat. That's a recipe for disaster. I don't believe that you can look at an opportunity and think that you are the opportunity, because egos can explode things, can absolutely explode things. I don't think that you could be doing $50, $60 million a month and take your eyes off the ball, because you're just actually getting warmed up. You could take that to 160 million a month. You could take it to 200 million a month. I mean, you could do some magical things. Just imagine if the Amway owners took their eye off the ball. Just imagine if the leadership started to become fragmented. You know, how would they get to 120 to 150 million dollars a month that they're still doing to this day, 5-6 decades later? So let's spend some time on leadership, bro, because you've learned a lot when it comes down to leadership. You're one of the best leaders that I know, but I want you to give some people some tips on leadership, from number one, what you look for, number two, what you always embody, And number three, why is this so important in their life as well as their business?
Yeah, leadership is so critical, and it starts with self, right? If you want to lead an empire, first you got to master self. And said you and I, we've had the ability to travel all over. Recently, we were even just together down in Orlando. I guess they're not really traveling for you, but and we were at an event, right, with the top-notch leader of leaders, right? John Maxwell, right? Shout out to Ray Higdon for putting this event together. And, we got some, time to, be in even more intimate setting, around, John and things of that nature. And, he was sharing with us how leadership in his 55 years of being the authority on leadership. And you guys, if you don't understand who John Maxwell is, it doesn't matter if you go in network marketing circles, corporate circles, sports team, religious circles, across the board, you say leadership, they say John Maxwell. Right. So I think he's the authority on leadership. He says leadership, I have never in my 50 plus years of doing what I do in leadership seen, number one, a lack of leadership in the marketplace and a bigger need for it right now. So this is a very, very key point. And so, he's got all kinds of tremendous books on leadership. I have someone here on the bookshelf, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership was the first one that I got introduced to him by. But this was a James Penn, revelation myself as I was studying all of the leadership things. And maybe somebody else has said it, but character is the organic hack to leadership. Character is the organic hack to leadership. It comes back down, I think, to that personality ethic versus the character ethic. Some people might try to study leadership tactics. You need to say it like this. You need to have I want to, read 48 Laws of Power, right? And because there's tactics in there, right? But if you're just pretending to be, if you're just trying to learn tactics versus actually becoming, I think that you're going to eventually revert back to who you are. And so this is not to say there's, again, not a place for tactics and studying the 21 irrefutable laws and things of that nature, but just work on your character, right? Said, if you think about it, anybody that has a tremendous amount of influence on you, right? Because this is what John Maxwell says leadership is. Leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. There's nobody that is in your proximity that you think, man, they got impeccable character, that doesn't have some level of influence over you, that you would pick up their call, you would give them your ear, that the weight of their words mean a little bit more to you because just their character is on point. And so, when you talk about, evaluating that in a leadership, in a company, right? You got to look at the character, right? And going back to Amway, right? They had 3 cardinal rules and 3 nevers, right? Three cardinal rules were, don't mess with somebody's income, don't mess with their spouse, and don't mess with their ego. Right. And we saw a lot of messing with people's money, messing with people's spouses, and messing with their egos. Right. And so, that speaks to the character of somebody. Right. The way we've heard this one, the way you do one thing is the way you do all things. Right. If you'll cheat on your spouse, you'll cheat in business. Right. If you're cheating, we're at the retreat and we're playing a game, we pick up game of basketball or we're playing spades, we're playing cards, and you'll cheat there, you'll cheat somewhere else. So, just having that character, like who you are when nobody's looking, right? And I do think there is space for grace, right? Because I have also seen cultures where, that there's no space for people to make mistakes. People say, hey, don't make the same mistake. You can make a mistake, but don't make the same mistake twice. That's hogwash. We do make the same mistake twice. It's not about not making the same mistake or over and over. It's about not getting to the point where you no longer realize it's a mistake. And so long as you're still striving, right? If you fall down 7 times, you get up 8, long as you recognize, you know what, that's not who I want to be. And you have to have the ability, once you become that leader of character, right, to see people not for who they are, but who they can be, right? And you speak to the person who they're going to be. And as they say, give a dog a good name and they'll live up to it, right? People will start striving and moving in that direction. Then you'll start having a culture of people that are people of integrity, people of character. And character is just not about honesty and things of that nature. Character is also about your work ethic. Character is also about your accountability, right? You said, hey, we were doing this at a certain time. And what would my accountability be? What would my character be like if I didn't respond, if I wasn't here, right? If you're coming to do a meeting for me, right? And I don't show up, right? Forget the guest not showing up, right? you've probably gone and done meetings with people before, and the person you were going to do a meeting for didn't show up.
Right.
Right. We talk about character. I give you this one. Said, I remember getting a person started in business, right? And driving over to their house to do the getting started session with them. And they didn't have the character, the integrity. They didn't have the courage to answer the door to tell me they changed their mind. You know, in the peephole, you can see when it gets dark. Right. I knew I was knocking on the door and they wouldn't open the door. And I felt 10-foot tall. I felt better. I felt more confident that I was going to win in that situation. And that might sound weird to some people, but I'll tell you why. Is because when I walked away, I realized just the lack of character and integrity that's pervasive in the world. And I was like, wow, I'm not like that. Like, this is not uncommon for people to be this cowardly. This is not uncommon. And I'm nothing like that. If I have that type of character, I'm going to win as long as I stick with it. So these are just, some of the things that stick out when it comes to, character and culture.
No, that's deep. That's deep. But for the people in the nosebleed seats, I want you to repeat those things from Amway. What were those 3 things from Amway again? Repeat them again.
Yeah, they got 3 cardinal rules and 3 nevers. It was, the cardinal rules were don't mess with a man's money or a person's money, right? Their spouse or their ego, right? Yeah. And never do something for the first time without checking upline first. Never embarrass the upline and never embarrass a bigger pen. And that part, comes to people like, well, why upline? Well, because if you're my sponsor and you're coming in to do a meeting, like, not embarrassing, like we know the edification. I can't edify myself. My upline needs to edify me. So I don't want to ever embarrass them. And that goes to just having forethought and thought to serve them as they serve me. So I want to make sure if you're doing a whiteboard presentation, do the markers, are they, like, check the markers, make sure they're good. Make sure he has water. So when he's at the front of the room, if his mouth gets dry, like he's not putting him in a position. Why? Because he's there to serve me. And I'll say this, Sid, I've seen people take some of these things and to other coaches and organizations where they didn't understand the root of where it came from. So then they start having this upline worship, like, yes, carry my bags. Yes, do this, do that. Right. And I was like, oh, y'all don't get it. You think I'm carrying your bag when you come to do a meet for me just because you so special. No, I just recognize that you're here to serve me. So I want to put you in the best position. So I'm serving you to serve me. We're serving each other. This isn't worship. And so you got to understand a lot of times where some of these, if you just get the tactics, but you don't understand the reasoning behind it, that's when things can start getting distorted and perverted.
That's deep. That's deep. You just triggered a story. And I'm gonna set the story up. I'm gonna play Magic without the HIV, and you're gonna dunk it. You're gonna be Kareem. Okay. We're in France. There's 1,100, 1,200 people in the room. You're on stage doing the training. And you tell everybody as you're talking, everything's getting translated. And out of the 1,200 people, maybe 50 of them could speak English. Maybe. So it was a very interesting time for us, everything being translated. And I was your sponsor. And this was, I don't know, 8-9 years ago. And you said something that was so epic that I always use and I always gave you credit for it. And you started off by telling everybody, hey, I just want all y'all to know that my sponsor's in the back of the room and all of y'all are in this organization. Now, I want to take me out of the equation because some people might think that, oh, he's saying that because it was him. No, there was something special that you said in that stuck with me that I've always used to this day. So go ahead and tell everybody that story because I think it was epic.
Yeah, no, it was powerful, and it was so cool to just be traveling, all over the world in Europe and going to these big rooms, and then even to full on Grand Rex Theater, right? The world renowned Grand Rex Theater, and seeing thousands of people and people not even recognizing, right, that you're sitting at the back of the room, or in some cases, if you didn't necessarily come on that particular trip back in the Sunshine State. And you're overriding all that. This is a powerful profession. But, what I told the people that were listening there was, it's your job to work your way from the back of the room to the front of the room, back to the back of the room, right? You got to go from the back of the room to the front of the room to the back of the room. So when I met you, and I understand some people were thinking, oh yeah, he set that up because it was him. No. This is just an example. This could be in anybody, any situation, right? When I met Cedrick, I was one of the people at the back of the room, and he was at the front of the room. And over time, over years, I worked my way to a position where I was at the front of the room because I listened to and I had coaching from people like Cedrick. And I got to give you your flowers here too, man, because over those years between the time we met to the time we first started doing business together, it was years. I don't even know how many years it was, but it was several years. And we offered me coaching, whether we were sidelining an opportunity. We weren't even in the same opportunity. I could hit you, hey, said, hey man, I got this going on. What do you think about this? And your advice, the thing I respected about you, I don't know if I ever told you this, but I want to tell you publicly now. The thing I respected was your advice was never, well, man, you just need to come, forget the company you with and come do my company. That was never your advice. You would always look objectively at what my situation was, what the circumstance was, and you would give me, feedback on that. And so because I had coaching like that, I was able to work my way to the front of the room, because how many understand that the person at the front of the room with the mic is usually making more money than a lot of people, in the audience. But that's only the first part of it. Work your way from the back of the room to the front of the room. Then there comes a point where you have to work your way from the front of the room to the back of the room. Because if you're staying in front of the room and you want to, hog the mic, right? So some people will rather be, spoiled by praise than saved by criticism. Some people just want to have the spotlight. Some people just want to have, all of the attention on them. You'll never have another group of leadership, right, that raises up under you. And so we've seen this in the profession. We've seen cultures, right, where it was a charismatic leadership where nobody dare rise to my level. Right. Nobody dare, right? And what happens is people get to a certain level of income, from their way from 0 to 10 or 15, maybe 20,000, they're starstruck by their upline, right? And they need the edification. They need somebody to look up to like that. Why? Because they're not there yet. But then once they start making money, right, their number one need is money in the beginning. After they start making money, and that's no longer really kind of their drive or their need anymore, now they need to spread their wings. They need to have the space to be able to, get time at the front of the room. They need to have space to be able to do their own events. And so, if you're really raising up leaders, if you're a leader and you want autonomy, right? We always talk about network marketing, flush your job. You don't want a boss telling you what to do. Well, I didn't leave my job to come here and have somebody else micromanage me, right? And tell me what to do and lord over me, right? So, if I want autonomy, I have to give autonomy. And so when leaders are ready, it's a succession of giving them space at the front of the room, letting them run their own meetings, letting them start to, have their entire even events, right? Maybe they have their own team conventions, right? And feeling safe and comfortable to give them that space to do that. And then you work your way to the back of the room. And it was so amazing, right? Like being able to see you in that position where I had to start off, met you where you're at the front of the room, I'm at the back of the room, and I work my way to the front, and then you're at the back. And I could only imagine you had to sit there, right, with the pride, right, the healthy pride of seeing your boy at the front of the room, knowing that you've helped me, you've coached me over a decade plus, and nobody in this room even really knows, that I'm overriding all of this, and that's my guy that I sponsored, but letting me have the space to grow as a leader, to be in a position in front of thousands of people, to and you're still behind the scenes coaching me and navigating through the process, but you're doing that from the back of the room. And that's where, that's where you really want to get, from the back of the room to the front of the room to the back of the room.
And that's where it gets fun too. Because, one of the moments that you didn't mention was that when you said that, I remember everybody looking back, and I never waved my hand. I was looking around too. I was like, where is he? There was only about 50 people in the room that knew, and I'm not going to sit there and claim it. Everybody just look around. Because what you said was key. Because some people's egos need to be so big. Hey, it's me. I'm the guy. I'm the woman. I'm with that. No, I tell people all the time, your mother never named you triple cardinal regional ambassador. She named you James. She named you John. Like go to the bank and say, I'm a triple cardinal regional ambassador. They're gonna be like, huh? Is that a deposit or withdrawal? Like, why are you here? Like, so I think sometimes we let titles get to our head and we let these egos get to our head. And I got this famous line. It's like, call me the janitor, just pay me. You call me the janitor, just pay me. And I think that people need to have their Rudy moments, you know, and I used to do this all the time, and I still do it from time to time. But, you know, I know you remember the movie Rudy, you know, it was a classic. And as I started doing this with different teams over the years, people started to catch on, and they never knew when it was going to be their Rudy moment. And let me tell you what I used to do, James. I think that you probably would steal this too, because it's so good. You know, every Sunday I would have those TTO Millionaire Mindset calls, and I had those calls for 15 years, you know, back when it was all about conference calls. And there'll be these team calls, and typically sometimes about 8:30, these calls will be at 9 o'clock. At 8:30, I would call one of my leaders and I would say, hey, James, look, something came up. I can't do the call. Huh? Something came up. I can't do the call. But look, I'm going to need you to run the call. I know you got it. But say, what am I going to talk about? I don't know. Take a choice. Take a pick. But I know you got it, so I know you're good for it. All right. I'll check out the recording. Have a good night. Click. And I get off the phone. They didn't have time to back out. They had 30 minutes before the call. Sometimes it was 20 minutes. I had some people freaking out, bro. They were, say it. No, this is your moment. I know you got this. You make $8,000 a month. You make $12,000 a month. You make $5,000 a month. I would test some people. There would be some people that were $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month people that I knew that were worthy. I knew that were worthy. But sometimes you got to have that Rudy moment. You got to have that Rudy moment. I never forget coming home one day, bro. I never forget coming home one day. All these stories keep popping up in my head right now. And I remember trying out for the Pee Wee football team. And, you know, we were all fifth graders. And all my friends, you know, wanted to try out for the football team. And I know you said you wanted to be an NFL player, but there's nothing about my body that says NFL. Nothing. So I wanted to try out because all my friends were trying out. That's who I grew up with. I remember never getting in the game. Never getting in the game. It was a scrimmage, practice, whatever you want to call it. Never had the ball thrown at me or nothing. Got my jersey. Remember coming home on a Thursday night. Because Thursday night, James, I know probably in your household it was the same thing. Like certain days of the week, we knew what we were eating for dinner. Thursday night was fish and salad. And the only thing that changed was maybe the dressing. That was it. And when mama tried to put that blue cheese on their plate, no, not blue cheese. Oh, Lord. Can we have some Thousand Island tonight? Nope, blue cheese. Oh, I ate blue cheese. I remember walking through the back door. And I told my mom, hey, Mom, I tried out for the football team today. And she looked at me really quickly. Looked like you didn't get in the game, son. And kept on cooking. She just hit me with the gangster grill. She hit me with the gangster grill, Penn. She's like, looked like you didn't get in the game, son. And she kept on cooking. And, man, I remember going in the bathroom and washing up and getting ready for dinner. And I'm like, how did my mom know I didn't get in the game? And when I looked in the mirror, I realized there wasn't one stain on my jersey. Not one. People want success. They want to know what leadership is like. They want to step their game up, but they have no stains on their jersey. Zero. It's sometimes you just got to get thrown into the game. Sometimes you got to get thrown into the game and you got to take those hits because you learn as you take those hits. A lot of times you're not going to learn. Nine times out of 10, you're not going to learn from the sidelines. You're going to learn from taking those hits. And man, we live in a society right now that is softer than freaking butter pecan ice cream on a 105-degree day. That people don't want to take hits. They don't want to take the hits. They want to stand back and watch other people take hits and avoid the hits versus getting in the game, realizing that if I want to be successful, I have to take these hits. So man, that's when you told that story, it just triggered it just triggered something in my brain that that just made me think about that, man, because it's deep. But we can spend so much time on that. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, if I can interject here, man, because I think this is a key point. Talk about taking hits. If we're gonna really peel back the layers for some different people, we gotta let them know about the hits, because there's so much edification in network marketing, which is great, right? Because babies cry for it, men die for it, right? And once we get to a certain age, we stop getting edified. So inside of network marketing, hey, you hit your, you got your first customer, you get edified, right? We'll put a flyer together for you in the Facebook group because you signed up your first person, you sponsored 2 and got dual team qualified, or you sponsored your first 3, and now you're a star or whatever, and you get edified, and we edify, and that's good, right? But because there's so much edification, particularly once you get to the top and you start getting the rings and the stage time and the flyers and the flames shooting out on stage, and you get so much edification that I think sometimes the people at the back of the room, the people in the nosebleed seats, they only see the Superman side, and they don't see the Clark Kent. They don't see all of the wounds. They don't see all of the scars. And so, as I went through my time in network marketing, right, it wasn't without challenge and struggle. I remember struggling in the beginning, right? Again, going to the meetings. When I was working a job and I would get off of work, right? I remember one time I said I got off work and I drove about 3 hours away to Greenville, South Carolina, because my upline super duper, intergalactic emerald with ruby side clusters hanging off, had an opportunity I qualified for a chance to get around them. And so I get off work at 5, I drive down. We had an activity, with some fun activity. And then, of course, you have to have the night owl where you go to Denny's or something to eat eggs. And, we're hanging on every word that he's saying. We got our recorders out, right? Another little nugget, right? Whenever we, met with our upline or somebody was giving you time, we always would tell the wait staff, hey, bring his food out first. And this is what people would miss it. Later on, they'd be like, yeah, give me my food first. Because, you thought it was because you're special. No, we want you to get your food first, so you can eat, and then when everybody else's food comes and we're eating, you can talk and share with us, right? This is where they get tactics, but they don't understand the thing behind it. So, we're hanging on every word behind them. We wrap up about 2-3 o'clock in the morning. Said I got a 3-hour drive back. I get back at 6 a.m. It's enough time for me to shower, go back to work. No sleep. Now I've been up. I woke up in the morning, went to work, drove down, did the activity, went to the night owl, hung on every word, drove back 3 hours, took a shower, went back to work, and then got off work, and then had some meetings scheduled at the local Barnes and Noble, some sit downs, right? And they were probably me shows. People say, what's a me show? You're like, not a no show, right? Because a me was there, right? I don't have no shows. I have me shows, right? Probably had some me shows or something like that. And I wasn't making money at the time. I was paying that price, not for a couple days, a couple weeks. For 2 years, I was paying that price without making money, but I was growing. I was becoming somebody. I was at the point where I remember one time getting woke up in the middle of the night, by my wife. She was like, babe, there's noise outside. And I panicked. I look out the window and I said, oh, whew, you scared me. I thought it was something serious. Don't worry. That's just them repossessing the car. Go back to sleep. I didn't know how I was going to get to work the next day, but I was that calm. I said, I promise you, in that moment, here's what I thought. Man, this is going to be good on stage one day. Mm-hmm. I literally thought this is going to be good on the internet. I was thinking about you watching this. This is going to be good. This is going to help somebody else one day to hear this. And so you do have those wounds and those scars. And are you, life is tough, but are you tougher? I believe you are, right? Where you are is not who you are. Where you are is an appointment you made in the past to meet your current self. And if you continue to, push through, over, under, and through, you will make it. And then even once you quote unquote make it, it's still gonna be wounds there too. Said I'll give you one more story, man, about just the hurt and the pain, right? Like it never stops being hard. You just deal with hard better, right? You just heal faster. You're still gonna get wounds. You're still gonna get hurt. You just heal faster. That's just the nature of living. People say, life happened. Well, the only option for life to not happen, right? Is for life to not be happening. And so I want life to continue to happen. Even once you make it. I remember being in a situation where I was with the company and I had a domestic team and an international team. And we were having challenges internationally with the company. And so I had made some decisions, and hey, listen, for my international crew, we're going to do some things, and we're going to supplement some income with a different program. And listen, we're going to respect the line of integrity. Everybody only sponsor who you sponsor, which is not against policy, company policy, just the third. And I'm doing this why? Because I'm trying to spin the plates of save this international organization I have. But I didn't tell my domestic team why, because they were winning. Domestically, we didn't have the issues in the company that the international did. So it would have been unfair of me to distract them with something else when they're winning, and that's not their problem. This is the weight I have when I'm showing up to my local weekly meeting, and I'm smiling in front of the room, and I have to deliver to these people locally, knowing that I have issues going on internationally. They don't understand that. But what happens is some of the people domestically find out, things get out and things like that, and then they start, some of the, even the leadership, people that are close to me, they started murmuring and having issues, right? Like even in the Bible, like people murmured against Moses, right? Moses got so upset he struck the rock. These people that you got to be lead, right? And we have to avoid doing that, because I just understand they just didn't have a perspective, and some people aren't going to have the understanding that you have, and that's okay, right? But at the time, it does hurt, because some of these same people that come up to you with tears in their eyes, I say, man, that what you said at the super side, man, that changed my life. Like the miles that you drove on their behalf when you knew they weren't gonna have nobody at the meeting, and you showed up anyway. I was taught, hey, listen, always go to the meeting. What if they ain't got no people there? That's especially when you need to go. I've gotten calls on the road trip where the person said, hey, man, look, just turn around. I feel bad. Ain't nobody. Everybody calls, said they're not coming. Oh, I'm coming. Or they not coming. I'm coming anyway. They need me more when nobody's there.
Right.
And the company didn't do that, right? The owner didn't do that. The company, the executive team, I did that. And those same people, right? Those same people with tears in their eyes, told you how much you changed your life. You told me everything I know. Those same people will turn around and throw stones or rocks at you. Now, fortunately, I was blessed enough to let time reveal all things, and all of those people have come back after the fact and like, wow, I discovered you were right. This is and get those apologies. But I'll end it with this. Sometimes you're gonna have to live with accepting the apology that never came, right? And not care about the reputation as much as you care about your actual character, right? Reputation is what people think about you. Again, your character is who you really are. And so as long as you know the truth, right, and you're doing things integral, know that you're going to not be immune from having those scars, those wounds. You're going to go through maybe some financial up and down. You're going to go through some drama with leadership, some people, hurting you, backstage. And from their perspective, right, they may not be wrong, right? It might just be their perspective, whatever. But if you're going to be on this side of life, you're going to experience pain. But what you do is you just heal faster, and it never gets easier. But what do you get better?
Man, that's deep. And I think that apology part, that applies to business and in life. Like, you've got to learn to go through life realizing that you might not get the apology that you want. Okay. Like, exactly the truth. And that's important. The more you talk, the more it's so interesting. I'm doing an interview, the other day with Lisa Grossman, somebody that we both know, really, really good friend of mine, the godmother. And one of the things that I talked to her about was the power of stories, because man, if this woman is the best at telling some stories, and naturally, as we're having this conversation, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that, hey, we've been around each other and we know each other, but you're using these stories to relate. And I want to monkey branch. I want to monkey branch into this next conversation, because I know that there's some stories behind it. And I've got a story behind it that a lot of people have never heard. And because of the transparency that you're giving on this, I think it's time. I think it's something that people need to know. And not only that, it could help somebody else. So let's monkey branch into this income thing. Last week I put a post up on social media, and it said that where I grew up at, we never counted our money in front of 5,000 strangers. Some of y'all need to be a little bit smarter. We live in this social media age, right? We live in this rapper age. We live in this Instagram age that we've got to show our cars. We got to show our cash. We got to show our checks. We got to prove all these things. And majority of the time, people that have to prove things, there's a layer of insecurity that's under it that people can't even see, because they have to prove this. The money is who I am. The car is who I am. The house is who I am. The wife, the husband, this is who I am, instead of having these real, true, transparent moments. And I've never seen you be this flashy guy. You've been successful. You own a very, very nice home. You know, you got the car life, you got the wife, you got the kids. I think the closest thing I've ever seen you do was when you got your 6-figure ring. And I wouldn't call that flashy. I would call that a proud moment. It was you getting your 6-figure ring. So why do you think it's important that in this day and time, you know, by the time this comes out, it's 2024, in this day and time, that people are much more smarter about what they say, how they move, and going through all this check flashing stuff. And let me put in a quick asterisk. There might be a person or two or three that I interviewed throughout this process that's part of their brand. And so be it, because I'm bringing in people from all different walks of life. That has nothing to do with how I feel, though. It really doesn't. And it comes from experience. It literally, like, people don't change sometimes until they experience something that says, man, I gotta change this. So what's your take on that? Why have you never done it? And then why do you think that people should navigate a little bit differently right now?
Well, it's several reasons why I haven't done it, and I don't do it. Is one, I don't think it attracts the right quality of people, right? The type of people that I'm looking for. And so one of the things that, you know, going back to our leadership and character, culture conversation, it's so interesting how all this stuff is interconnected, right? Is, you know, I'm very intentional with who I'm looking for. Your teams, if they grow, they're going to grow to, you know, dozens and then hundreds and then thousands. You're not leading thousands of people, right? You're leading your leaders, right? And they have their leaders and its levels of leadership. And the culture, right, is going to, you know, exude the leadership. Is going to follow that. And so one of the things that I am very intentional about is, who am I looking for? I'm always auditioning and interviewing people, right? Like, I think I've even heard you say before, like, sometimes, you know, you might be, you know, people don't really have business cards nowadays, but you catch the picture of you pull your business card out, you about to, you know, give it to somebody and they say something stupid and you put it back in your pocket, right? That could be the best business card decision you ever made, right? It could have saved you a lot of money, because, you know, you don't want everybody in your organization. And so in order to be that way, you have to know, well, what do I want? And so I'm very, very precise in what I'm looking for in a person. And my experience has shown me the type of people who are just attracted by flash and money. They typically don't have a certain level of substance. They typically don't have a certain level of even business and financial savviness, right? Because if you think about people who are, it's almost predatory on, you know, like underserved, you know, communities that don't have as much business and financial savviness. Oh, you got money. Like, people who actually have a little sense about them, they're not moved by that. And so, you know, that's one of the reasons I've never done. Another reason is because I don't believe you'll do it for the car or the house or you know, all of these trinkets, the ring. I don't think you'll do it for that. I think you'll do it for that. I think you see the car and you think you'll pay the price for the BMW or the Bentley or the Rolls Royce, whatever level we go to, right? I think you see it and you think you'll do it for the 4,000 square foot house or the 10,000 foot mansion. I think you'll do it for the 6-figure ring or the 7-figure ring. But when you get slapped in the face and you get some of those scars that we just talked about, and your car is repossessed in the middle of the night, or some people quit on you, or some leaders that you never ever thought would have, like, done you wrong, did you wrong. When you start experiencing those things, if you're doing it for the car or the ring or the trinkets, you will not go through those challenges. You won't. So you gotta have so I like to speak to what I want people to like a mission. I'm always leading with a mission, with a cause, right? With like making an impact. That's the type of people that I want, right? Because you will go through something more for those things. And then why I was suggesting this time, even if you're like, hey, I ain't on that, man, that's forget, whatever. I'm just trying to get paid. Okay, cool. Listen, even from that standpoint, said the world's always evolving, right? I think people are becoming more and more savvy nowadays. There's an entire niche inside of social media, particularly on YouTube, about exposing scammers. Right? These people got entire YouTube channels dedicated to I'm the scammer exposer, right? And a lot of the flashing of the money type of field like falls in that lane. And so you're bringing heat on yourself. And so even if you're like, well, I don't care about, what you talk about with, people won't, actually build it for that. I'm getting signups. And I don't care if they stick around and they're not the right people. I'm getting, okay, well, guess what? I think that's going to start to taper off. In 2020, when it was all the stimulus money and people were stuck in the house, right? And they couldn't go to work. They got these stimulus checks. They didn't have to pay rent. And people were running it up with courses and programs, and I'm gonna teach you Airbnb or Turo or Forex or this coaching program or that coaching program or this high ticket thing or that high ticket thing. And people were, just shelling it out because they were stuck at home. They didn't have to pay rent. They were getting stimulus checks. But nowadays, after 2, 3, 4 years of people they've bought multiple courses. They tried this thing, that thing, that thing. They tried multiple programs, multiple offers, multiple network marketing things and other opportunities. I think people are more aware of their own buying habits. And they're more aware of, I bought that thing, I didn't even go through it. I bought that thing and it didn't work. I got this course. And after I went through the, welcome onboard intro, I never even, and so they're even more, I think the marketplace is even more aware of their buying habits. And so if all you're doing is showing flash, right, to attract people, I don't even think it's going to be effective as much going forward. So for all of those reasons, I think that's why I've stayed away from it and why I recommend that people don't do it even in this season and going forward.
No, that's deep, bro. And that's real. Like you took it even deeper than my anticipation. And I think that, the timing that we're in right now, people have to learn to be smarter. They just have to learn to be smarter. You mentioned the channels that expose things. Well, let's take it a step further. I always say a lot of people tend to pay attention to the likes and the views that they get on a video or a post. And I'm a big, gigantic fan of paying attention to the people that don't like. And the people that you have a video, it says 1,000 views, but you got 100 comments. That means 900 people didn't say a thing. So you have to start thinking to yourself, who are they? Some of those people aren't going to never say a word. It's quiet people that just scroll around and look at stuff. But then there's those people that plot in their brain. There's those people that drink the haterade. There's those people that won't ever work for it. And I think that when you position yourself to attract certain type of energy, you have to be very, very careful. I know a couple of really, really big earners in this industry. I'm talking people that 30, 40, $50 million people that have gotten jacked and that have never talked about it. But after it happened, they started moving really differently. They started moving really, really, really differently. And the flash disappeared. The I'm out of town on this time disappeared. All these other things that they would post disappeared. They stopped doing it. And I think that that's so important that this younger generation that's coming up with the Instagram and the TikTok and the YouTube and all these different ways of marketing, not saying that showing something here and there, that's one thing, or using one particular shot to show what just happened. That's one thing. Not consistent though, not This is your brand. This is how I always do it. Every month when I get my check, I post it. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, you guys won't stop this until you understand what Beanie Siegel said in State Property. Get down and lay down. Like you won't stop this and until that happens. And I remember, that company that we were in that rhymes with Cialis. And remember they gave us those big checks, those big Ed McMahon checks, those $25,000 checks.
Well, wait a minute. I hate to come on your platform and have to correct you. They didn't give us those big checks. They gave I was still at the back of the room. They did not give us those big checks.
Yeah. You paved your way. You paid your dues though. You paid earlier days. You paid your dues. I remember getting those big gigantic checks, man, and I was very, very proud of those checks, man. Extremely. I built multiple positions in that company, man. My ex-girlfriend, I built an ambassador position. I built the 5-star ambassador position, 2 positions that you get a $25,000 bonus. Another position, you get a $100,000 bonus. You get a $250,000 bonus. And you get all these big, gigantic cardboard checks in. And I would be doing meetings at my house, James. And as I'm doing a meeting at my house, I've got those checks there to prove to people that it's possible. Totally forgetting sometimes that you never know who's in your home sometimes. When you do a meeting, and that was back when we were a lot more comfortable, 2010, 2011. I'd never do that today. Back when, you're a lot more comfortable and, you say you're doing a meeting and you've got 5 or 6 or 7 of your key people that are in the area and they invite a couple of their friends, and it's at your home. It was nothing for people to do challenge parties at their home with people that they didn't know. You never know who's there. And there's people that look at those checks thinking you actually got all that up front, thinking that it's sitting in your pocket. And this is the stuff that I share that I think that from experience that some people don't get. Some people really, truly don't understand, and some of us live a certain way for a reason. I told a friend of mine, not too long ago, she was like, you move like this, you move like that. And I'm like, I'm much more aware than you are. There's a difference. See, if you grew up how I grew up, you become aware. When you have seen your best friend die right in front of your eyes with people that used to be their friends and had no reason to do that over money, you start to move differently. You start to learn not to trust every single person. My dad told me when I was young, never trust anybody no further than you can see them. I never understood that, James. I never understood. I'm like, what is he talking about? But as I got older, man, I was like, my dad was dropping some wisdom on me when I was young that I didn't get. And as I got older, I got it. I started to get it. So now I move like this. And I try to educate as many people as humanly possible to pay attention to how they're moving, because this is what they're attracting. And listen, if you want to make everybody happy, go open up an ice cream parlor and sell ice cream. Everybody isn't going to be happy with how you move or what you say. That's not what it's about. It's about keying in on your tribe. And as much as you can educate those people based off of experience, based off of things that you've gone through, based off of things that you have seen. Man, the day my best friend died, bro, growing up from the 5th grade, my road dog, the only person that when I would go back to Richmond, my hometown, that I would connect with from a friend level, even though he was still in the dope game and I wasn't anymore, but I trusted him. I never had to worry about anything. The only person that I was in boot camp with, the only person that I was in jail with, that was my bunkie, that was my roadie, since the 5th grade. When I saw him die, James, when I saw him die, it changed everything in my brain. It changed everything. And this is the part that people don't get. It's like, man, we got this on the internet right now. Like, you actually doing this on the internet. This is what you're doing on the internet. You asking for it. Like you asking for it.
And said, I think, everything you're saying is so sobering and it's real. And I really hope people are taking note of that. And I want to be able to offer them, as you did in part in there, offer them things to do, right? In case they missed it. Because so often, we're telling them, you tell, I got children, right? I'm raising 4 children. And, I was just talking with my daughter last night. She was talking about having, anxiety. And I think that's something important. That's an important topic right now as well. There's this like low level state of anxiety, right? Because anxiety comes from when you have too many options, right? Hopelessness comes and despair comes when you don't have any options. Anxiety comes from too many options. And so we have all these options, of how to market and I should post this. And you're seeing, the Instagram, the girls, they just show everything, right? That's their flash. That's their version of flash, right? They're getting all the likes. Or the marketers who are showing all the money, that's their like, what should I do? And you got this anxiety of, what to do. And then here we are telling you, what not to do. And so even last night, as I was dealing with my teenage daughter who was like, I feel overwhelmed. I have all this stuff. And I said, well, listen, here's what you need to do. First, I said, you ever make a to-do list? She was like, yes. I said, well, one, change it. Don't make it a to-do list. Make it an opportunity list. These aren't things you have to do. These are opportunities you have. You have an opportunity to clean your room, right? Well, how's that opportunity? Well, be thankful that you have a room. You have your own room, right? And I grew up, I didn't always have my own room, right? That's an opportunity. If you have to clean up, that means you have things, you have possessions, right? So you have an opportunity. So make an opportunity list. But then the second thing I told her said is, here's your not to do list, right? Like you need to put down a list of things I'm not going to, get on my phone, on social media until I've done, this amount of, productive activity. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. And so we've given the people the not to do, right? Don't post your money. Don't post the flash. Don't post the big checks. We're giving them the not to do. What's the opportunities? What's their opportunity list? I think part of the opportunity list is still to lifestyle, but just shift their framework of what lifestyle is. I think when people hear, oh, you got a lifestyle on, right? Because we were involved in a company where they told us you got a lifestyle. And I believe in that. I don't think it's incorrect. I think it was incomplete in them not really explaining what lifestyle was. So we heard the message as lifestyle was show the BMW, show the checks, show the flash. Where lifestyle is your life, that's not your lifestyle, right? And so people aren't attracted to a one dynamic or one static person. They're intrigued by dynamic individuals, right? You're not one way, right? It's so interesting, in the relationship space, and it's all the gender wars on the internet and stuff. People be like, a man is this, a woman is that, a man is this way. A man is whatever he needs to be in the moment, right? Like you got daughters, I got daughters. A man, you hard when you with your when your little grandbaby laying on your. You're not hard, like you're whatever you need to be in the moment. And so there's multiple sides to you. Alex Hormozy was just talking about this, how the niche is in not in copying and doing what everybody else doing. The niche to stand out, right, and finding your tribe of your audience is to show the layers of you. He used Joe Rogan as an example. Like Joe Rogan, he's talking about combat sports and pot, smoking weed, and political things and conspiracy theories and all the things that he's like. And now you're gonna say, oh, well, that's a niche. I'm going to try to copy it and do those things. No, what are the interests that you have? So part of your lifestyle, I have a very active lifestyle. My children are involved in sports. So if I'm showing my stories, you may see on social media me working out. You may see me taking my kids to a track practice or a wrestling practice. That's part of my lifestyle. Part of my lifestyle is travel. So you will see me traveling. Part of my lifestyle might be, you might see some glimpses of my home. Like we could see your home. We could tell that you ain't in that same, struggle place that you grew up in, right? We could tell with the aquarium. So that's just a little glimpse of your lifestyle. You might show that you went out fishing on the boat, things of nature, but you're showing you're showing multiple, sides of yourself. Part of my lifestyle, I might just show a plate of my healthy meal, right? Particularly if you want a health and wellness, arena. Show a salad with salmon on it, right? I just took a great picture, my wife and maybe a very healthy meal. I'm getting in real good shape right now. I'm on the back patio doing work for the day. That's lifestyle too. The book you read. How about this? You're going to bed at night and you're doing your reading, and you take a picture of the book while you're in bed and highlight it. What jumped out to you. That's lifestyle as well. And so we got to broaden what lifestyle means to us. The things that you're interested in is going to actually start to attract the people that are in line with who you are, and then you don't have to try to keep up this facade or pretend to be a certain way because you painted this image online, right? And you're scared somebody's going to figure it out if you were just who you were, the whole time. So those are some tips I would give people on lifestyle. And the last thing I'll say is on that travel piece. Travel is a big part. I love travel, and I'll post about travel, but you don't have to post it while you're there, right? Like I could drop a fire. Matter of fact, it came up on memories today. This fire trip that I was on a couple years ago, and I was like, "Oh man, take me back!" Right? I could post that right now. It's still going to get if the posting is about engagement and we understand the algorithm game and all of that. I could post it right now. I went on that trip 3 years ago. It's in my memory. So you could post it 3 days when you get back, or 3 weeks later, right? Hey, about a week ago.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
But I'm at the crib if you want to come through. Think it is sweet.
Bro, that's real talk, because one of my good friends, multiple 8-figure earner, was traveling overseas, man, and house got broken into, very large house, 30,000 square foot house. Got broken into in the daytime by a couple of goons. Got a lot of stuff out of there. A lot of stuff. But he posted that he was in a whole nother country. And some people might be like, well, who has a 30,000 square foot house that people can actually get to? I don't know. When you're in a double gated community and the guards are in on it too. That's 2 gates you got to come through. Double. How do you get through that? You know what I mean? Like, how did you get in? You're not on the list. You're like, people don't think about this type stuff. You know what I mean? And I remember talking to him after the fact, and he was like, I'll never post again that I'm out of the country until I'm back. And I learned from that. Like, when I go to Richmond, I'll never post that I'm in the city. I grew up in Richmond, VA. Richmond is a little different. And I'm in a different place in my mindset these days. So when I go there and I see my parents and I see my kids and I take these pictures and I do this and I do that, by the time they hit social media, I'm already back home. I've got friends, say, where you at? Florida. Dude, I just see the picture with your grandbaby. Man, that was 3 days ago, bro. That was 4 days. Why you ain't holler at me? I've been busy, family. There's just some people that you don't really need to see anymore. That you've outgrown that mindset, you've outgrown that atmosphere, and you don't even really know if you want to be around that type of energy. People don't understand how strong energy is and how energy can be transferred, and that could change your way of thinking in 10 seconds. In 20 seconds. Some people don't believe in energy. They don't believe in spirits. I believe in energy. I believe that spirits transfer through bodies. I believe in that wholeheartedly. You be around the wrong person long enough, some of that stuff rubs off on you through energy, through spirits. So you have to be smart about that. So you got to navigate a certain way. So before we wrap this up, bro, because I got a couple more questions before we wrap this up, because this is some good stuff, and we going deep. Like, we're going way deeper than my anticipation, but man, we might have to do a take 2 on this one. That's for sure. But you have been blessed enough to build a very large international presence. You have sponsored people that have made multiple 7 figures, that are doing really, really well still to this day. And there's a lot of people that will be looking at this saying, well, how do you how do you build a strong international team? Because one of the beauties of the international play is that you could be like in your home, like you're in, North Carolina right now, and people don't know how big your team is in a whole nother country. And they don't even know what you're doing. They ain't got no idea. And it's like, what does he do again? Well, what's that? What's going on? Blah, blah, blah. But that team over there is crushing it. So what are some tips that you can give some people about how to create an international base so they can take advantage of those time zones? Because I always tell people, Warren Buffett said you're not making money until you're making money when you're sleeping. I agree with that fully. However, I said you're not making money in network marketing until you have people in your organization where you can't pronounce their name. That's when it gets real. So give some people a couple of tips on that, bro.
Yeah. So tip number one is understand the power of it and the benefit of it. Like you want this. Trust me, you do. Because as you said, when it's international, one, the expectation of the people is different, right? Like you can have somebody, 2-3 states over, and it's an 8-hour drive, and they're like, hey, if I can get 25 people, to show up, would you come do a meeting? And I'm like, and if they say 25, that means it's gonna be 8, right? If somebody is across the Atlantic Ocean, they like, yo, hey, if I could get 500 people in a meet, would you? If I could get it, yeah. Now think about that. If it's 500 people at a meeting, and that organization is well into the thousands. Right. Yeah, if you can get 500 people in a meeting, I'll come. Matter of fact, my first time to going over the first time going over to Europe, I had a gentleman come inside my organization through depth. Tip number 2, it don't have to be personal, right? Some of this over time ended up being personal because people fall out, you transition, things of nature, and things compress up to you. But it started off in depth. Tip, don't miss that, in depth. The guy showed up in depth, and he was in France. He was like, listen, if he wanted to come on board, he said, if I come, I want a U.S. leader to come over and help me, with this. And I'm like, that's reasonable, that's fair. And he was like, yeah, next week. I'm like, excuse me, I beg your pardon. If y'all, for those who don't know, like, there's a difference in international and intercontinental. International is Mexico, Canada. A flight to Canada and a flight to France,
2 different conversations.
It's a little different in the price tag. Particularly, you talk about a flight to France on 5 days notice, not planned out. 5 days notice. I was like, excuse me, next week, I beg your pardon. He's like, yeah, I'll put 150 people in this weekend if you come. I say, look, you put 150 people in, I'll book my flight. And sure enough, he put 150 people in, and I booked my flight. And a week later, I'm in a room in front of hundreds of people, right? And so the power of this is, once you have that, right, the expectation is different of what, one, the people don't speak your language a lot of times, if you're dealing over in Europe or somewhere else, but the leaders typically do. Only in the US, most people aren't bilingual. A lot of the leaders are bilingual. So you're still able to communicate and deal with your leaders and do maybe 3 ways with your leaders. If they're dealing with somebody who doesn't speak the language, they'll be able to interpret for you, right? So you'll have that. And you get to sit here and your day-to-day is not as taxing, right? So to your point, people were like, yo, what do you do? I love confusing them. They'd be like, yo, what do you do? I'd be like, nothing. That's a hell of an answer to what do you do? Nothing.
That's better. That's better than when the cops ask you what you do and you say, I sell white powder. And they're like,
it's definitely better than that.
No, that was health and wellness. White powder, like Vasal.
White, right.
What?
This is protein powder. This is white powder. It's white powder. Yeah. So being able to, hop on a Zoom and they're speaking in, it's been simultaneously interpreted into 8 languages. So you're speaking, but they can, drop down and have it in Portuguese or Spanish or Italian or like that. That's pretty cool. And then those time zones, when you're waking up and they've already been up for 5 hours, they've already been up for 6 hours, and you're already seeing commissions coming in. That's pretty cool. But to get to that point, right? All right. So to get to that point, you have to understand the power of it, and wanting it. Understand the expectation is going to be different once you get there. But in order to get there, number 3, I'm going to say, think globally, but build locally. Think globally, but build locally. So it came through depth. I remember earlier I said I was very precise in knowing what I'm looking for. So I understand the mechanics of doing a tap root, and you haven't sponsored a person until you sponsor the person for them, right? And a team is not a team unless it's 4 deep, right? And at every level, I want to get some width. So I don't want to even just build straight down, because I want a firewall at every level. So if I sponsor you, I don't want to just sponsor you, then get you sponsor somebody and then sponsor somebody and it's one-legged all the way down. I want to sponsor you, get you 3, 4, 5 wide at least, and then get that next. Then that gives me options of these 5 people you sponsored, who is the one that's moving the best, right? This is exactly where this international organization came from. I sponsored my high school wrestling coach, right? And I got him about 5 or 6 wide, and because I had him 5 or 6 wide, I wasn't forced to work with one person. I could look at those 6 and say, who's the most worthy of my time? And by their action, not because I'm playing favorites, but they raised their hand. They chose themselves through their action, and it was his cousin. I got her about 10 wide, and she had a young lady on her team that had some market experience that was the superstar. She got about 15, 20 wide. I thought she was the one. Here's a lesson: don't anoint people too early. I still treated everybody the same. I knew where I was focusing my time, but I didn't make people feel bad. Well, it was good, because even though she got about 10, 15 wide, none of those 10 or 15 people were workable. None of them. So because I had a firewall of width on every level, I didn't have to come all the way to the top of the tree. I only had to go back up one level and say, well, who's the second most workable person on this? And that was the international organization, right? So just knowing what you're looking for and knowing that it's not always going to come on level 1, it's going to come in depth. And then once you do have a team of some size, you can call the play, who do you know in? So once you've built a local team of dozens, you got 50, 70, you get to 100, 200 people. Of those 200 people, you can say, your company's expanding. We're opening up Canada. Who do you know in Canada? 200 people, they know somebody in Canada. Oh, my cousin's stationed in Germany. We're opening in Germany. I used to live over there. I was traveling abroad. I went there for, study abroad when I was in college. Somebody knows somebody. So you don't have to directly know those people. You build locally, and then you call the play. Who do you know in Mexico? Who do you know in Canada? Who do you know in the UK? Who do you know in France? So on and so forth. And if you're going Europe, going in through the UK is another little hack, because they actually speak English, don't have the language barrier. But, when you get over there, the way we travel from state to state, people travel from country to country. It is the weirdest thing being in a foreign country where they don't speak your language. And I'm in the French train station to head to Belgium for a meeting, and I hear somebody's name in a country where they don't speak your language, so you're not even used to hearing English. If you hear English, it sparks your attention. And somebody's like, James Penn. And I'm like, who knows me in French, right? James Penn, hey. I'm like, hey, who are you? He's like, yeah, I'm on your team. They're taking a picture in the French airport, right? That's really, really cool. And it's more cool. What's more cool than that, because we all like our ego stroke, don't front, right? Like, it was a little ego stroke. It felt good. But what's more cool was the back office. Every morning I woke up, because they're 6 hours ahead already, right? That commissions are already flowing, right? And you just keep, every month or so, about once or twice a month, you're doing a Zoom meeting, right? Daily, you're staying in contact with your leaders, communicating with them on a regular through WhatsApp or Viber, whatever app you're using there. But that all starts from building locally, right? And then thinking globally. Who do you know? Call the team to play to your team, but you got to have a team first, right? And some of y'all sponsor 3 people thinking you got a team. Y'all barely got enough to play spades, right? You and 3 other people. That's not a team, okay? That's a spades group, all right? Build a team, and then, hey, who do you know here? Who do you know there, right? And if everybody's focused on that one time, then, it pops.
Awesome, dude. Wow, those are some nuggets. I hope some people took some notes on that. Nuggets. James, we're going to wrap this up, brother. And I've asked everybody the same question at the end of these interviews. So I got to pre-frame it, right? The name of the book is called Untold Upline Secrets. So the $1 million question is real simple. You know, if you can go back 10 years, 15 years, whatever it was when you started or throughout your process, what are one or two things that you wish that your upline had told you, or that your sideline did tell you, whoever it was, that you didn't do, or that you wish, if I would have listened to him, if I would have listened to her, or if somebody would have told me this 5 years ago, man, I would have this, so I would have done that. What would it be, brother?
I got to pick. I'm picking one, or what am I doing here?
Got a couple. Knock yourself out.
Okay, a couple. Yeah. So certainly, you know, we've heard this one. You know, believe much bigger, much faster. Right. Just having a bigger belief of what's possible, and just getting that exposure, and then like really embracing the understanding that these people that you're looking up to on stage, they're just people like you. Like there's some people, right? I say this humbly. There's some people that are going to watch this and, you know, be maybe enamored and amazed by some of the things I've said and like, oh my gosh, he's got organizations and he's made money. I'm just a dude. I want to go back to, I grew up on government assistance, foreclosure, been there, repossession, done that. Like building the business, right? Like and so you're in that place. So we hear stories sometimes. And we think they're that. We think they're stories, like fables, like fiction or something. Like they're stories, but they're true stories, right? Like, right. And you're writing your story right now. You're writing your story. And so when I got that, when I had that clip, that click, that you know, billionth of a vote, that synapses that fired off my brain, that was like, I'm doing this. No more, you know, mental ping pong, you know, what back and forth. I'm doing this, and I'm like, oh, anything that happened to me is happening for me. Over, under, through, like it's happening. Oh, this is going to be good on stage. Oh, this person quit. Oh, I lost this organization. Oh, I'm struggling, to pay that. This is going to be great on stage one day. It's going to be great in my book. This is going to be great on an interview. It's going to be great on a podcast one day. Like when I had that belief, and I didn't have it for a while, right? That's when things started to really change. Like you become that first, and then you get the results. You don't get the results and then you get that belief. You don't get the results and then you get the belief. You get the belief first and then you get the results. So definitely, belief is at the top of the list. And then the second thing I would have to say is, learning how to evaluate, opportunities. I think I spent the first part of my career, learning the ropes of network marketing, both personal development and the mechanics of building the tap route, the firewall, the mechanics of a three-way. One of the things I don't hear talked about a lot, is what do you do as an upline on a three-way, right? I've learned from you doing three-ways from me in the past, like how to do a good three-way. We always teach people, hey, when you're on the three-way and you're the downline, edify them and be quiet. We're teaching them. But nobody teaches the upline, like how do you do a proper three-way, right? So those are the things I wish I'd learned as well. But aside of all of the mechanics and of building, I learned that the first half of my career, how to do the three-way, how to do a tap route, how to do a home meeting, how to the personal development. But I didn't learn till later, how do I evaluate an opportunity, right? And so you can, the business is the business. The work is the work. The three-ways are the three-ways. The miles are the miles. The meetings are the meetings. The Zooms are the Zooms. The work is the work. If you're doing it right in a better vehicle, right? If you're doing it in a better vehicle, you're gonna win. Listen, I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, right? Where we got the Charlotte Motor Speedway. I don't even follow racing like that. I'm sure this person's retired, but the only one, like Dale Earnhardt Jr., right? If I'm going to race him, right, from here to Atlanta, Georgia, right? Like, who would you put your money on? Probably Dale, even though he's retired, right? He's out of the game. You probably put your money on him. But if I told you, well, I get to drive my car and he has to drive a bicycle, you're going to put your money on me. Why? Because I got a superior vehicle. So if the work's the work, yes, learn the work, learn the personal development, learn the mechanics of the business, taproot, three ways, presentations, skill sets, invite, follow up. So learn the skill set, but learn how to evaluate opportunities as well. So if I'd have, learned, if I'd had higher belief earlier and knew how to evaluate opportunities earlier, I think it would have, sped up, some of the success and the significance that I've experienced later in my career.
Wow. That evaluation is so key. I think that people spend so much time not understanding how deep that is. And boy, have we learned over the years how important that is. So thank you for closing out with that. Well, James, listen, man, this whole hour and a half plus just blew by. The value that you gave us, brother, was absolutely impeccable. I'm going to be going back and re-looking at this myself, man, because you dropped some real serious bars. And, I want to say, man, it's always good to see you. I'm so glad that we connected well over a decade plus ago, and we've been friends ever since, inside of opportunities, outside of opportunities. And I think that some people don't value the fact that one of the benefits of this industry is the relationships that you have created. And I truly appreciate and I'm very grateful for the relationship that we have created, and also, spending time with your lovely wife at the same time. So thank you so much, bro. I'm humbled. I appreciate you popping on this interview, man, and I can't wait to do it again, brother.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you and everything that you poured into me throughout the years, and going from that coach, or somebody that's still a coach, and I respect it, look to for feedback and things of that nature, but superseding that to a true friend.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Until the next time, bro, drive safe. I know you're on a trip this weekend, so be safe out there, and we'll chat soon.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, brother. Peace.
See you.